All right, let's dive in. Today we're exploring the world of C.S. Lewis, the Christian thinker,
Yeah.
and how it kind of intersects with the law of one. You
Yeah.
know, that channeled text that digs into spiritual evolution and all.
Right.
We've got some great sources to work with.
Yeah.
A Grief Observed and Mere Christianity by Lewis,
So it's
obviously,
yeah. Yeah.
and then some key excerpts from the law of one.
It's gonna be fascinating.
It is. So what we're trying to do today is see where Lewis's worldview kind of aligns with or maybe even clashes with
Right.
the teachings from the Law of One.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, like, what can we actually take away from all this? Like, how can this help us in our own lives? You know what I mean?
Totally. I think it's a brilliant pairing, these two. Lewis grappling with this deep grief, questioning his faith gives us this raw human look at how complex life can be.
Yeah.
And the law of one, it's like this grand cosmic blueprint for understanding consciousness and like where we fit in the universe. So comparing these two, it could bring out some really unexpected insights.
Oh, for sure. Let's kick things off with a grief observed. You highlighted this part where Lewis describes his wife's absence as like the sky spread over everything. It's
Yeah.
like, wow, that really captures the feeling of all-consuming grief, don't you think?
Totally. It speaks to how pervasive grief is. Like it seeps into every single part of your experience. What strikes me is Lewis's honesty there.
Yeah,
He doesn't shy away from the pain, the doubt, even the anger that comes with loss, right?
it's real.
He even questions the very nature of his love for his wife, wondering if it was anything but imagination or egoism.
Whoa,
Heavy stuff.
it's a deep question. And it seems to connect with something that keeps popping up in Lewis's work.
Okay.
This tension between what we want as humans and something much bigger than us, right?
Exactly.
In A Grief Observed, he's longing for the happy past restored, almost like he's clinging to this like comforting illusion.
Hmm.
And then in Mere Christianity, he tackles pride head on, calling it the great sin.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where I think Lewis's insights become super relevant to us today.
Oh, absolutely.
He's basically pointing out how we as humans tend to put ourselves at the center of everything,
Yeah.
letting our egos and desires like contr control how we see reality,
Right.
which, ties in perfectly with that law of one concept of service to self, where
Yeah.
it's all about personal gain and satisfaction.
Exactly.
So we're already seeing some common ground here.
Right.
Lewis, from his Christian viewpoint, sees pride and self-centeredness as roadblocks on the path to spiritual growth.
Mm-hmm.
And the law of one, coming from this more like metaphysical angle, it echoes that
Right.
by outlining the traps of that service to self mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you say that's a fair assessment?
I think you're spot on. Both frameworks seem to agree that our internal state, what drives us, the choices we make, they all directly impact our spiritual evolution no matter what terms or beliefs are involved.
Right, right. Now, I'm curious how the law of one would interpret Lewis's intense desire for the happy past restored.
Okay.
This clinging to a time gone by, it seems to go beyond just nostalgia,
I
right?
see what you mean.
It's almost like a refusal to accept what is,
Mm-hmm.
which the law of one might see as resisting the natural flow of experience.
Yeah, that's an insightful connection. The law of one really stresses the idea of catalyzing those challenges and tough experiences designed to push us toward deeper understanding and spiritual growth.
Oh, yeah.
It suggests that fighting those catalysts, clinging to the past, or seeking comfort in illusions only holds us back from evolving.
So while Lewis is wrestling with his grief, trying to find solace in memories of his wife, the law of one might suggest that true healing comes from facing the pain head on, learning from it, and letting it transform him.
Precisely. And this is where the concept of densities in the law of one comes in.
Okay.
They're like different levels of consciousness, each density representing a deeper grasp of unity and interconnection. From that perspective, Lewis's grief could be seen as this opportunity to shift from a density of separation and longing to one marked by acceptance and a deeper understanding of love's lasting nature.
That's a fascinating way to reframe grief. It's not just something painful to endure, but a potential catalyst for spiritual evolution.
Right.
It makes me wonder how Lewis, with his Christian worldview, would react to this idea of densities and the law of one's more like cosmic take on suffering and growth.
That's a question worth exploring further, for sure.
Yep.
Lewis's emphasis on surrendering to God's will, accepting the mystery of suffering, and seeking transformation through faith
Right.
could be seen as aligning in some ways with the law of one's focus on surrendering to the flow of experience and trusting the process of spiritual evolution.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. It feels like we're finding some interesting parallels between Lewis's more personal view,
Yeah.
centered on faith, and the law of one's big cosmic framework. They both seem to agree that there's something bigger at work in our lives, whether you call it a higher power or a universal consciousness.
Absolutely.
But the way they approach the nature of this force is pretty different.
Oh, for sure. Lewis, with his Christian background, talks about a personal God, a loving creator who's involved in our lives.
Right.
The law of one presents the creator as this unified consciousness, the source of everything, but without the specific traits or interventions that we usually associate with a personal God.
Hmm. That's
Mm,
interesting. I wonder how those different views of the divine shape their ideas about salvation or enlightenment.
yeah,
Lewis, in Mere Christianity, really emphasizes Christ's atonement as the way for humanity to reconcile with God.
right.
What's the law of one's take on spiritual progress?
The law of one doesn't focus on one specific event or person for salvation.
Oh,
Instead, it's all about the gradual evolution of consciousness through these cycles of experience, learning, and refining. We move through these densities of awareness by making choices that are either service to self or service to others.
huh?
And these choices determine how fast we progress and the lessons we learn in future lifetimes, so to speak.
It almost sounds like some cosmic game of snakes and ladders,
Yeah.
Our choices decide if we move up toward unity or slide back down into separation and selfishness.
That's a great analogy. It really highlights the key difference in focus between Lewis and the law of one.
Yeah.
Lewis is all about the final destination, uniting with God through Christ.
Right.
But the law of one emphasizes the journey itself, that constant process of learning and evolving through our choices and experiences.
But even with those differences in approach, they both seem to agree that love is crucial for our spiritual growth.
Oh, definitely.
Lewis champions love as the ultimate virtue, the force that connects us to God and each other, right?
Yeah.
So how does the law of one see love?
In the law of one, love is the fundamental energy of creation itself.
What?
It's what drives evolution, fuels compassion, and ultimately leads us toward becoming one with the Creator.
Powerful stuff.
It suggests that every time we genuinely serve others, every expression of unconditional love, it actually raises the vibration of the entire universe,
Wow.
contributing to the collective evolution of consciousness.
So even though they come from such different starting points, both Lewis and the law of one seem to meet on this idea of love as a force for transformation, both personally and on this grand cosmic scale.
Exactly. And that's where things get really practical.
Okay, I like that.
Both systems offer valuable insights into how we can bring more love into our lives.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Lewis, in Mere Christianity, talks about setting aside our pride, choosing humility, and forgiving others.
Mm.
He urges us to look beyond ourselves and find ways to serve others, even in small, everyday ways.
So it's not necessarily about these grand gestures or huge sacrifices,
Right.
but more about making a conscious effort to be more mindful, compassionate, and helpful in our daily interactions.
Exactly. And the law of one emphasizes the practice of radiating love and light. It suggests that we can have a positive impact simply by being present, showing kindness, and holding a loving intention in our hearts.
Love that.
It encourages us to see every interaction, even the tough ones, as opportunities to learn, grow, and offer compassion.
It's a beautiful reminder that we don't need to wait for some extraordinary moment to practice these principles.
Right.
We can start right now, in this very moment, by choosing to respond to life's challenges with grace, understanding, and that willingness to see the divine spark in everyone we meet.
And that's such a powerful testament to the wisdom found in both Lewis's work and the teachings of the Law of One.
Sure.
They remind us that true spiritual growth isn't about achieving some far-off goal, but about the choices we make every single day. Choices that align with love, service, and recognizing our shared humanity.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I keep thinking about this idea of choice.
Yeah.
Both Lewis and the Law of One really stress how much power we have to shape not just our own lives,
Right.
but like the whole collective consciousness, too.
It's true.
It's almost like our choices are these tiny little brushstrokes, and we're all adding to this huge, ever-changing cosmic tapestry.
I love that analogy.
Right.
Yeah.
What I find so fascinating is how these two perspectives, even though they seem so different,
Yeah.
can actually work together. Lewis, with his focus on individual responsibility and the eternal impact of our choices,
Right.
it kind of lines up with the law of one's idea of karma,
Parma.
that
Yeah.
our actions create these ripples that come back to us and shape what we experience in the future.
Exactly like a cosmic feedback loop.
It is. Every choice, every action
Yeah.
sets off this chain of events that ultimately creates the reality we live in.
Right.
Makes you think, doesn't
It
it?
does.
If we're all connected and part of this big tapestry, what kind of world are we making with the choices we make every day?
That's the question.
Are we choosing to weave in love and compassion and understanding?
Yeah.
Or are we just stuck in these old patterns of fear and separation and conflict?
It's a powerful thought for sure.
It is, and I think that's the ultimate challenge both Lewis and the Law of One put before us,
Okay.
to become conscious creators, to really own the power we have,
Own it?
and to make choices that line up with the best, most hopeful vision we have for ourselves and for all of humanity.
Absolutely. Well said.
So as we come up from this deep dive, I'm left with this sense of both responsibility
Mm-hmm.
and this amazing feeling of empowerment.
Yeah,
Responsibility because the choices I make every single day, knowing they have these ripple effects that go way beyond me.
they do.
And empowerment because I
Yeah.
realize I actually have the ability to help create a world that's more loving, compassionate, and connected.
One choice at a time.
Exactly, one choice at a time.
I think that perfectly captures the essence of everything we've explored today.
Yeah.
Both C.S. Lewis and The Law of One, in their own ways, invite us to step into our roles as co-creators of reality.
Mm-hmm.
They remind us that real spiritual growth isn't something that just happens to us. It's an
Right.
active journey. We're constantly learning, growing, and making those choices that resonate with love, service, and recognizing that we're all in this together.
This deep dive has really given us a glimpse into the incredible wisdom that comes from bringing these two seemingly different perspectives together.
It has.
We found surprising connections, interesting points where they differ,
Mm-hmm.
and in the end, a powerful call to action,
To action.
to live with awareness, to
Yes.
choose love, and to really embrace the transformative power of compassion.
I encourage everyone listening to keep exploring these ideas, to dig deeper into Lewis's work, to ponder the teachings of the Law of One,
Mhm.
and most importantly, to think about how these principles connect with your own experiences and what you hope for in life.
Yes.
The journey of spiritual evolution never ends.
It's a process.
It's full of challenges, insights, and ultimately the potential for deep, meaningful transformation.
Keep diving, keep exploring, and keep choosing love.